For this video we're going to take a look at the tank inventory solution, some of the changes I've made to give it a bit more of a user interface. So since we've last spoke, you can see here now that I have different colours and whatever. I won't be covering that in this video. These are just different widgets which I've changed to. I'll quickly show you that. The alarms are still the same, the trend is still the same. Rather than having all the vessels on one tab, I've got them on individual tabs now. So what I've done, rather than using this limit monitor here for my reorder and high level, I've split it out into a bit of separate code. I'm okay with my 4 to 20 because the scaling for 4 to 20 is always going to be 4 to 20. So this is purely monitoring the fail-safe value for the 4 to 20 to give us some indication that the level sensor that's connected has gone into fail-safe mode. But for the reorder and everything else, I've decided to add a user interface. So we'll start down here at the bottom. I'll come on to this bit at the end because this is quite nice, so you can get a pop-up dialog box. I've got an inject node here that's just sort of kicking all of my other nodes into life, so it's just injecting after 0.1 seconds, sorry. And then I've added some sliders. So 2 sliders. Slider is part of the dashboard UI, and you can see here there's the slider. So this is what I've added. I've renamed it, of course, because it's in my program. I've given it a name, I've given it a dimension, and then I'm just saying my range is going to be from 5 to 40%, and that is going to be in steps of 5. And I've done the same for high level. High level is 70 to 98%. If you get to 100% with a high level, warning, you're in trouble. Those then are, because there's no text to tell you what you've got set, so you can see here what we've got set. I've also pushed the output of that into a text node, so it displays the text by the side of the slider bar. Again, I'll show you that. So that text is just this node here, and then the value coming out of here, I've pushed it into a flow, not a global this time, because I want to cut and paste this and put it into each of my flows, which makes it nice and easy. And it's reorder, but rather than having it set for memory only, I'm sticking it in file. If the power goes on and off, it's got this value saved, and that's quite important. And I've done the same for the high level. And then I have almost like what we call a switch debounce. So we don't want to have the alarm going on and off if the level's right on the cusp. Sometimes you call it hysteresis. The easiest way for me to do this is an alarm delay. So I have an input box for number, so that rather than a slider on this one, I've just played around. You can have here numeric input, and here I've got a range 2 to 10. I could have put whatever I wanted in there. So, and then that is pushing again that payload into flow delay. There we go. Just noticed an error. I need to change that to file, because I didn't want to have a millisecond value on my user interface. I wanted it in seconds, but the delay I'm using later on needs it in milliseconds. I put a little bit of a maths in here, and you can see how easy it is to do. I've set a Java expression, and then the payload, I'm timesing that by 1,000, and then I'm storing the results in the delay. So let's have a look at my flow. Context memory area. If I hit refresh, I can see here delay 2000, high level 90, reorder 15. If I go back to my user interface, I'm going to take this down to 10, take that up to 95, and then I'll give myself a 5-second delay. So if I now go back to my flow data, I can see a 5000 milliseconds, 95, 10. So that's the first part of the flow. Now we're going to use those values to trigger alarms in this second part of the flow. So this second part of the flow is basically doing the same here as these limit monitors, but I'm using the standard function nodes that you get with Node-RED. So this function here, so Nearly everything I'm using is out of this section. Okay, so you can see it has put my limit monitor in there, but I've downloaded and put that in myself. So the first thing that I've got is a check for reorder and a check for high. So if I have a look here, I'm now using my flow process value that I've got, file, and I'm doing is it less than or equal to or greater than. Hope I've got those the right way around, and it's just looking at the message payload coming in. So the message payload, I've done a bit of a link to tidy my program up, is just my percent process value. You can see up here, look, there's my percent process value, and there's the link coming down. So I'm bringing it into this flow, and it's running that check, and I've got two separate outputs. I'll go back to my change node. I've got two separate outputs here, and then the next part of this is just setting the output to equal true or false. Right, so that's the same for both. So that's then now doing everything that this node does, apart from the delay. The delay is the next block, so I've got a standard message delay. So I'm using this node here, the delay node. So if I just recap, change node, switch node, delay node. If I have a look at my delay, I've got it set for 5 seconds, but override with message delay. So this change node here is linked down to where I'm setting, manually setting my switch debounce. It's coming into here, and it's moving. I'll change that and correct that. It's moving the delay from file into message delay, which now sets these with a new switch debounce timer. The true or false state is still being pushed through this timer, and it's just using the same LED indication. So you can see here if it's true, if it's false. So I haven't changed that, I've just moved it down to here. And then the nice bit, I've got a little bit of a flow at the top here for doing emails. Right? Now the first thing I need to do is to stop getting the same email 50 times a day. I don't want that, I just want it once. So if my level goes below the reorder, every time I poll this flow, so every 5 seconds, it will come all the way through, if I don't have this node here, which I'll explain in a minute, and you'll get an email every 5 seconds. So I've got to stop that from happening. Again, I'm using the delay node, so if I open this up, I've just put a rate limit on all messages, and I'm saying 1 message per day. Right? I could say 2 messages, 5 messages, or 1 message per hour. It's entirely up to you. So I'll get that first email triggered through. If I'm still below the reorder level 24 hours later, I will get another email. So I'm just getting 1 email a day. That should be enough. This function node here is setting the message for the email. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time going through how we've set up the email. So this email node here I've had to install. So if I go to my manage palette, I've covered this on another video, but I'll just quickly go through it. If you type in email here, you'll see node red email. I've already got it installed. It was updated 2 months ago at the time of recording this video, so that's good to see that it's constantly being looked after. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to put it in from fresh so you can see it. Here it is. So we're doing email out. It automatically defaults to the setting for Gmail. That is your SMTP address. This is the port if you're using the secure connection, so you don't have to change these. I've just unticked these, and then you put in here your login details for your Gmail accounts. Now you don't have to use Gmail. If you know what your SMTP and your port numbers are for the email supplier that you've got, then you can put that in there as well. There is something that you're going to come across that's a bit of an issue. Let's just delete that, which I'll come on to in a minute. If we go to this and click the help, there's all sorts of messages that I can have come into this block. and that's what this function node is doing. So it says here, if you leave the message to, so if I leave this empty, then I can start putting in my own messages from a function. So what I've done here, I'm going to build this email message up, in a little bit more detail. So the first thing I'm doing, ready for my next bit, is I'm reading a value from global get, which is my percentage value, and I'm fixing that to 2 decimal places, so I don't want 10 decimal places, and I'm just storing it in a temporary memory location called level. You can see here I've remmed it out. I'm going to be doing something with a timestamp and the level, and I'll put that in my message when I get round to it. Message 2 is the email address you want to send your alarm notification to. Message topic will be the header that you get on that email, and then the message payload is the actual message in the email body. Okay, I've set those, so that will then trigger, come through to here and push it into my reorder. If I put in my normal password, okay, click done and deploy, this is going to kick my flow off for the first time. You can see my timer now working down here, 5 seconds, and if I've got the right level, I don't think I have. Let's go back. Yeah, I'm at 90. That's a perfect example where you don't multitask. So if I bring that down to my reorder level, I'm just going to knock that up to 15. And we should see the reorder light change. There we go. Now if I go back to my program, I can see here my email has failed. I go to my message. I can see here I've got a problem. Now if you just cut and paste this, so I've cut and pasted that message in, and you can see here there's a little bit of a write-up on what to do, and it's something to do with the app password is the reason why it's not working. So this is, I don't know how new this feature is, but Gmail never used to do it this way. If you go to your app passwords, I've already done this, so you'll have to log into your Google account, and normally what you get under security, this changed last time when I got a little bit lost, it should be how to sign into Google. The look and feel has changed, but what you can do in your search in your Google account is just type in app password. There you go, app passwords under security. But just to show you what you need to do, you go to select app, other. I'm going to delete this afterwards, so test and then generate, and you get this new code. Okay, so keep that code safe somewhere, and I'll delete this. If I go back now to my flow, rather than having my password that I would normally have, I use this new password. So if I put that into there, so this is my new code that I've generated via app passwords in Gmail. I will deploy this, let me clear all of these, and you can see it already went send in, but let's have a look. Right, so because I've got no timer here, it does it instantly. I'll probably put another timer in. The reason for that, if you can see here, my true and false are linked, so I can't have it on the output of this, because whatever condition I had, it would always trigger an email. So I've done it off the true, so I probably just need to put another fixed timer in there so it matches this timer. So that email now has gone, completes the look at this flow. So the nice thing that I've added is something that gives you like a pop-up message, and I said I'd leave it till last. You've got this complete node, which is quite nice. You've got one that's status. I'm not sure what catch does. Catch any errors. Okay, so it looks like it might store those, but this is just going to give you a visual indication. But I've sort of latched it anyway. So if you drag that into your project, what you've got to do is tell it what nodes to look at. I don't want to do all nodes. If you come down here, I'll type in message. So these are all the nodes in my project. If I look on here and type in email, you can see here there's an email for reorder and an email for overfill. Okay, so I'm going to push that into a notification node. So again, down here I've got this notification node that I've dragged in, and all I've done with that is I've set here layout OK stroke cancel. My default is OK. I've left it at that, and I'm doing nothing else with it. Okay, I'll send all messages to browser. So I've ticked that. That's important because it's going to take the payload that's going into my email. Yeah, so this email here. What's my payload? I'm formatting it here. My payload is vessel1 stop running low. So it's going to take that message coming from that node. Sorry to jump around and make you dizzy. And push it into that dialog box. So let me get my level to a position that's not going to trigger. So you can see here there's my alarm, but let me do a real live demo. Let's get that up above 15%. We'll wait for that to clear, and then what I'll do, because I've got my email so it can only do it once a day, I just have to restart my flow if I want to see that. Okay, so that's we've restarted the flow. Clear my trend, and now I can go up to, I won't do reorder, I will do my 95% because I don't think I've tested, I've added it, but I haven't tested this feature. So let's go above 95%. Okay, I get it straight away. I've got my 5-second delay. So now this is monitoring my email. Okay, so my email has been sent, but I also get a little pop-up, and that will stay there until I action it. Okay. So that is the new features with the email functionality. What I'm going to do next is push that information. I'll just do it for vessel 1 to start off with, into InfluxDB, so I can use InfluxDB on the same Raspberry Pi as a bit of a historian. So it will just show you all of my levels, and again I'm going to use a function node to do that. So the last one I'm going to add is moving the data to InfluxDB. So I've added a new flow. I'll call this Influx. Okay, and I can trigger that information in. I can link it to the flows, but I'm just going to do it every second, so I don't need to do anything special. I'm just going to inject on an interval once every second. Let's just make this bigger so you can see it. So there we have it. Now I'm going to have to add a function. I'll go in and edit this. So we'll call this well, what I could do is I could split this into 4 separate messages for each vessel, which would probably make sense. So I'll call this vessel 1, and then I can cut and paste and just change some of the tags. So that's my name. Now the first thing you need to do is to pull all of your information from global memory area and stick it into temporary memory locations so you can use it within this function. So just so we know what we're doing, we'll get the context data up, we'll refresh it, and we've got distance 1, level 1. So I will just do it for level and percent and loop. I won't do it for distance at this time. So what you need to do is start the command off with var. Decide what your temporary tag is going to be, so I'll call it LV1 just to keep the type in, and then equals. And this is where the expression builder now comes into play. So if I type in global, because that's where I'm getting the information from, global get, and then the name. So I can probably just cut and paste. I'll copy that and put that into here. Okay, level 1. So that's my first memory location set. I will now do one for percent. So var, and it's more or less the same again. So you'll see again the expression builder is starting to come into play. I will just be really lazy and cut and paste everything, At least I know it's going to be right. I don't need just need one inverted comma, not semicolons, so %. So now I have my two values pushed into temporary memory location that I can use within this flow. Now I need to produce my JSON message. So we do message.payload. Again, you can see the expression builder equals, and then we're going to open up the wiggly brackets and we start building up our JSON expression. So the first thing we need, a tag that's going to appear in InfluxDB, level 1, and it's a string, and then we need to link it to the process data, so colon, and then we're looking at this alpha. So if I put a capital L in, it will find their LV1. This is what I've got in my program. Then a comma, because we're going to put the next expression in, so this will be %1, and then semicolon, and then I want to link this to my temporary variable, so put capital P in, it will find it. Now I don't need a comma at the end because this is my last expression, so that helps me distinguish that I've finished setting up this JSON message. Then I'm going to close the expression and return the message. So if I click done on this and then link that. So what I can do now is use a debug just to test that. I will put that onto the complete message, deploy, and then go to my message debug, and I can see here every second now I'm getting these two values, right? And I could actually put an alarm output in there and everything. I can build this up to give me more information in InfluxDB, so it's actually logging when an event occurred as well, rather than just a trend. So I've got a bit more information. So we're going to link this data to InfluxDB. I've already installed the node. If I go down here, we're looking at InfluxDB out. And it adds a timestamp, so I don't have to do anything with a timestamp. If I have a look at this, first thing I have to do is add an InfluxDB server to my program. I haven't got one, so if I do edit, I have here, this is my local IP address and port. It's on the same PC. I'm on a Raspberry Pi 64-bit, and that's really important because I have now got the latest version of InfluxDB, version 2. I can give this a name, and then I need a token, and that is the bit where I need now to go to InfluxDB. So I've opened up InfluxDB here. I can see house home 8086, and I have a data explorer. If you go to load data, you can see here API tokens. I'm going to create an API token. It created one when I set it up. I'm going to delete that for now and do a new one. I want it to have access, so all access, and I'm going to call this one inventory. This name doesn't matter as far as Node-RED is concerned. I click save. What is important is this code here. Now, I would always recommend to get into the habit of putting this into Notepad first if you're on a Windows PC, so just so to make sure you cut and paste it correctly. But also, once I click on the cross button here, so I'll copy this to clipboard. Once I click on that, I'm not going to see that token ever again. Even if I go into settings, I can't see it. It's hidden, and that's good because that's the security level that we're after. So I've copied that, go back to here and put my token in. I'll keep that ticked for now, but I think it needs to be unticked. And do add. Okay, now we come back to add in the link to what we call the bucket. Again, I need to go back. This bit will catch you. You need to, when you set up InfluxDB, you'll set it up with an organization, and when you collapse this menu, you can't see it, but there it is, simplified IoT. I can't copy it, unfortunately, so I'll have to type that in exact. And then the bucket, again, if you go back to your explore data, is probably the best place to go. You can see here, when I set InfluxDB up, you have to set it up with a bucket, but I could create a new bucket if I wanted to here, but I'm going to use this existing one, inventory. I don't want milliseconds, time precision seconds is more than enough. The measurements, this is what it will create for you in InfluxDB. So I'm going to call this vessel _1, right? And I'll give it the name as vessel. So now when I link this, every second it's going to be pulling the information from global memory area, sticking it into a message payload, pushing that into this node, which will then push it into InfluxDB. So if I do compile or deploy and then go back to InfluxDB, might need to do a refresh on here, but we'll see. You can see here now inventory, vessel 1, and then I can see my level and percent. If I submit that, I can just start to see my information now coming in. So this will be stored into this database. So to summarize what we've done, of course we've changed the look and feel. I'll let you play around with that, or you can ask me for the flow and I will send it to you. We've added the user interface here, so the reorder levels. We've added email alarms, and we have also now have a historian where we're using InfluxDB. All of the methods for installing InfluxDB, and if you want to go into other tools like Grafana, are covered on my channel. But for today, that completes our look at our tank inventory solution. I hope you found that useful, just to show you how powerful a low-code platform can be, such as Node-RED. But for now, thanks for listening, and hope to see you again soon.